I married Natalie Becker when I was 26 and still thought people were mostly who they said they were. She was warm, intense, unpredictable in that way women in movies are. Coffee at 11 p.m., sunrise swims, late-night jazz stations. I was stable. Taught history at a community college outside Louisville, Kentucky. Paid my taxes early. Made the bed each morning. We met in line at the DMV. She said I had kind eyes. Funny how the first lie is always the smallest. I didn't find out about the other man until 6 months after our 7th anniversary. Not because I was suspicious. Not because she changed her perfume or stopped laughing at my jokes. I found out because my best friend Dave, who works in IT security, called me in a panic. Matt, he said, I was testing an open-source facial recognition tool on some random photo uploads from a dating app I'm writing code for. Okay. And I swear to God, one of the profiles matched Natalie. I blinked. Maybe it's someone who looks like her? Matt, it's her. But the name's different. Paige Turner. I laughed. Like the pun. He didn't. Yeah, she's listed as single. No kids. Lives in Nashville. That was 2 hours away. Far enough to live a whole different life. I didn't tell her what I knew. I waited. Watched. Pretended to forget our anniversary just to see how she'd react. She didn't even flinch. She was already somewhere else. For 2 weeks, I tracked her comings and goings. She said she had a writer's workshop on Wednesdays and weekends, which was laughable. She hadn't written anything more serious than a birthday card in years. I drove down to Nashville on a Saturday. Found the cafe listed in her Paige Turner dating profile. Waited in my car. At 11:22 a.m., she walked out holding hands with a man who wore a vintage leather jacket and kissed her cheek like it was muscle memory. I didn't rage. Didn't break things. I took a picture. Then another. Then I left. Because I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to erase her. Not physically. Not online. From herself. You see, Natalie had a past. One I'd carefully helped her bury. She changed her last name when we married. Cut ties with a controlling mother. Deleted old accounts. Burned photos. She used to say, "You made me real, Matt. I wasn't anybody before you." And now she was Paige. So I figured I'd introduce Paige to the girl Natalie used to be. One secret at a time. The first thing I did was contact Amy, her old college roommate. The one who stopped talking to her years ago after a blow-up over a boyfriend. I asked her to meet for coffee under the pretense of returning some old boxes of Natalie's stuff. I showed her the pictures. Still lying her way through men. Amy said, "Would you be willing to message her?" I asked. Just remind her who she used to be? Amy didn't hesitate. That night, Natalie got a text from an unknown number. Funny how the girl who said love meant loyalty is now out here reinventing herself. Wonder if your new boyfriend knows what you did to Danny your sophomore year. I watched her read it from across the living room. Her face went pale. She locked her phone. And for the first time in months, she looked afraid. I slept soundly. Not because I hurt her, but because I reminded her. I knew all her names. And I was just getting started. Natalie didn't mention the message. Didn't say a word about Amy. But I watched her start locking her phone when she went to the bathroom. Changing her passcode. Reading things twice, like every word could be a trap. She was getting nervous. That was good. Because the only thing more dangerous than someone who lies well is someone who starts to suspect they've been seen. Next step, bring back her old voice. Natalie used to sing. That was one of the first things I loved about her. Back in college, she played small open mics, uploaded covers to SoundCloud, even had a YouTube channel under the name Nat's Fire Song. When we got serious, she deleted it all. Said it was embarrassing, but I'd saved the files. All of them. She sounded vulnerable in those recordings. Younger. Honest. Like she was still figuring out who she was, not inventing it. I created a burner account on Instagram and TikTok called it Firesong Found. Then I posted a clip. Just 20 seconds. Natalie, 21 years old, barefoot in a dorm room, singing a folk cover of Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. Caption. She said this part of her life was dead. But songs don't lie. By morning, it had over 2,000 views. And Natalie? She looked like she'd seen a ghost. At dinner that night, she stirred her pasta but didn't eat. You ever think about old versions of yourself? She asked. I played dumb. You mean, like, past lives? She gave a soft, fake laugh. No, I mean, like, who you were before you got good at hiding it. I tilted my head. You think I'm hiding something? Not you, she said. Just people. In general. I nodded, pretending to agree. But I wasn't hiding. I was revealing. She started pulling away then. Stopped touching me in bed. Began disappearing for hours on end, drives to clear her head that turned into overnights in Nashville. I didn't ask, didn't confront, but I followed the pattern. She stayed 3 nights with the new guy, his name was Dean. Ran a second-hand bookstore. Wrote short stories about lost men and wore wool beanies in the summer. She didn't delete our shared calendar, though. So I marked an appointment for Saturday, 2 p.m., memory lane. Didn't say what it meant. Just left it there. She saw it. I know, because she hesitated the next morning before leaving. Then texted me. "What's that thing on Saturday? Something we need to talk about." I replied, "Not really. Just someone you haven't seen in a while." What she didn't know. I tracked down Daniel Landers. He was Natalie's high school boyfriend, the one she cheated on 3 times and ghosted after promising to move in with him post-graduation. He never forgave her. He also never remarried. Still lived just outside Lexington. Ran a mechanic shop. Smoked menthols. When I reached out and explained who I was and what she was doing now, he didn't hesitate. "Hell yeah, I'll talk to her." Won't even raise my voice. I told him the cafe where she and Dean usually met on Saturdays. And that's where he waited. I wasn't there. Didn't need to be. But Natalie didn't come home that night. And when she finally did, sometime Sunday afternoon, her face was drained, lips tight, like someone had wrung her dry from the inside. She didn't speak to me. Didn't ask questions. Just went to the guest room and closed the door. I didn't follow. She was right where I needed her to be, alone in a room full of reflections she couldn't recognize. The next day, I sent a message from another anonymous account to her new boyfriend, Dean. Just a single line. Ask her real name. He read it. I know because he replied, "Who is this?" But I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because the next time I checked her location, she wasn't at Dean's anymore. She was in a motel off I-65. 1 star. Cash only. No check-in ID required. A place people went when they couldn't stand to be themselves. She was unraveling. Good. Because her mask didn't deserve to be ripped off. It deserved to slip quietly in public, in front of people she thought would always see her as perfect. And now? She wasn't Natalie. She wasn't Paige. She was no one. And no one was just the beginning. The motel Natalie checked into was called the Valley Pines Inn. No website. No security cameras. No paper trail. Fitting, really, for someone who made her whole life out of paper people and placeholder names. I didn't go there. Didn't follow up. I just watched her location blip on and off through the phone tracking app she forgot I'd installed years ago. She was still too paranoid to be herself, but not clever enough to erase me entirely. After 3 days, she resurfaced. Back at the house. She moved through it like a tenant in someone else's life, opening cabinets slower, looking around corners like she might find an old version of herself she could put on like a coat. She didn't, because I'd already started cleaning her out of memory. First, I sent a message to her old voice coach. A sweet older woman named Carol who taught at the local music conservatory. Natalie used to credit Carol with finding her voice. I remember the way she'd light up when talking about how much Carol believed in her. The message I sent? Short and simple. Natalie Becker passed away. No obituary. She wouldn't have wanted one. Thought you should know. I used a throwaway email and signed it A. Becker, her estranged mother's name. Carol replied a day later. "Oh my God. I hadn't heard. I'm heartbroken. Thank you for telling me." That was the first grave I dug for her. Then, I went further. I reached out to the nonprofit where Natalie had once volunteered, back when she was trying to reinvent herself as a woman of impact. Sent an email to the director. "Natalie won't be returning. Please remove her name from the upcoming newsletter. Her wishes are to stay quiet during this time." They responded with understanding and removed her entirely. No questions asked. A week later, Natalie got a call from a mutual friend, Mary Ann, who hosted the local women's book circle. They talked in the kitchen while I fixed the sink. Natalie was pacing. "No, I don't know who told you that, but I'm very much alive. I've just been off the grid." A pause. Then, "No, I don't need help. Can you just tell everyone I'm fine?" Her voice was cracking, not with sadness, with panic. She was starting to see it, that I wasn't going to ruin her. I was going to quietly edit her out of every narrative she ever tried to control. And the cruelest part? No one was going to miss her. She confronted me that night. "I know it's you," she said. Her voice wasn't strong. It was hollow, desperate. I dried my hands with a towel and said nothing. You're trying to erase me. No, I said. I'm giving you what you wanted. A fresh start. Isn't that what Paige Turner was for? Her lip trembled. Why don't you just divorce me? Because you don't deserve the clean ending. You don't get closure. You get a mirror. She sat down hard on the edge of the couch.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
And for a moment, I almost felt sorry. Almost. But then I remembered her kissing Dean's cheek, smiling like nothing behind her mattered. And that made it easier. I filed the divorce papers the next morning, left them on the kitchen counter, and signed, along with a plane ticket. One way, to anywhere she wanted to go. There was no note, because she already knew. This was the end of the version of her that thought she could leave scars and still walk away pretty. She left 3 days later. Didn't say goodbye. Took only 2 bags. Left behind her phone, her wedding ring, and a folded sheet of paper. All it said was, I don't know who I am anymore. That was the first true sentence she'd written in years. Now, when people ask what happened to Natalie, I tell them she moved, changed careers, got quiet, and they nod, because no one really remembers her. She never stayed long enough in anyone's life to matter beyond a good impression. And that's the worst punishment for someone like her. Not jail, not scandal, irrelevance. Me? I'm still here, still teaching, still living, no louder than before, but infinitely lighter. Because revenge wasn't about making her hurt. It was about making sure I'd never have to carry her fiction on my back again. 3 weeks passed without a trace of Natalie, until I saw her again, not in person, on my screen. A new blog post circulated in a modest corner of the internet, a site called Second Voice, where women wrote about grief, betrayal, healing. The piece was titled, When the Man You Married Turns into a Ghost. No name, but I recognized the rhythm. The language was soft, poetic. Accusations wrapped in suggestion. Questions in place of evidence. He watched me come undone and never once reached to help. There are bruises that don't show on skin, the kind left by silence. In the end, I lost myself because I loved a man who needed me to be smaller. It read like an elegy. For herself. And beneath it, dozens of supportive comments. Thank you for writing this. I feel seen. He didn't deserve you. It would have almost worked. Almost. If she hadn't included one detail too specific. He taught history. Once said he loved me like old books, cracked at the spine but worth keeping. That was mine. Word for word. I'd said it to her in the car on a rainy night in our 2nd year of marriage. She'd cried then. Real tears. But now she was using it to craft a fiction where I was the ghost. Where she was the victim. And the scary part? It might have worked if I hadn't already prepared. A year before all this, Natalie had tried to become a social media coach. One of her many reinventions. To get practice, she recorded branding sessions with a few people, offering them advice on how to craft authenticity online. She recorded everything. One session was with a woman named Lydia, who wanted to talk about narrative manipulation, how to get ahead of bad press if you ever got caught doing something regrettable. In the recording, Natalie says, You don't need truth. You need control. You paint your version early and loud. People fill in the blanks with sympathy if you give them space. And later, I always say whoever cries first usually wins. Doesn't matter who started it. She laughed after that. I hadn't needed the file. Until now. I sent it anonymously to the editor of Second Voice with a short note. This is your contributor. Just make sure you're comfortable with the character behind the prose. No reply. But the post vanished within 48 hours. Natalie's profile, deleted. And I checked the comment threads. A few remained, confused. Some angry. One in particular stood out. Why are all the best liars so poetic? I didn't gloat. Didn't text her. Didn't even save a screenshot. Because the victory wasn't that she was silenced. It's that her final reinvention was dead before it even lived. She tried once more. Reached out to one of my students. A sophomore named Lexi who'd bonded with Natalie during a dinner party years back. Natalie sent her a message that said, He's not who you think he is. Lexi forwarded it to me. No comment. Just the message. But I knew what it meant. She was out of platforms. So now she was resorting to whispers. A coward's encore. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Lexi blocked her. So did 2 others. Because when your stories change too often, people stop listening altogether. And that was when it clicked. Natalie wasn't scared of being caught. She was scared of being known, because being known meant her reinventions wouldn't work anymore. Being known meant limits. And Natalie Becker never wanted to live within anything, not marriage, not memory, not truth. So I left one last gift. I uploaded a single voice recording, just one, from our 3rd anniversary. Natalie, half drunk, telling me, if you ever leave me, I'll vanish before you can explain why. And they'll believe me. I always get believed. No context. No explanation. Just the voice. Posted it under a podcast episode about manipulation in modern relationships. Anonymous. Let people interpret it how they wanted. They did. I never heard from her again. She didn't try to contact me. Didn't reply to the divorce finalization notice. Signed and filed, with no remarks. She'd gone completely off-grid. And for the first time, I think it was real. Because when the stories run out, all that's left is the silence you once weaponized. And now, it only echoes back to you. She wanted to win by being the loudest. I won by being the last one standing. No applause. No curtain call. Just a man she used to know, still alive, still whole, and finally free. Some betrayals don't come with screaming matches or slam doors. Some just dissolve slowly, like an old Polaroid left in the sun, until the person in the picture no longer looks familiar. I used to think Natalie ruined me. Now I realize she just revealed me. The strange part of recovery isn't the silence. It's the moments when you reach for something that's no longer there, not physically, but habitually. I'd still pour 2 cups of coffee sometimes, out of instinct. Still pause at the doorway before locking up at night, thinking she might still be brushing her teeth in the other room. Ghosts aren't always scary. Sometimes they're just muscle memory. I didn't date, didn't post, didn't disappear either. I just lived. In smaller, quieter ways. I started going for early morning walks again, like I used to before Natalie's schedules became religion. I rejoined the community chess group. I finished the history manuscript that had gathered digital dust since 2019. It's strange how much of yourself comes back when you stop making space for someone else's fiction. One day in March, I got an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a photo of a book cover, a self-published novel titled When Smoke Lies by P.D. Harrow. I recognized the name immediately, Paige Turner. The summary on the back read like a fever dream version of our marriage. A woman trapped in a cold relationship, manipulated into silence, who finally breaks free and disappears. The story was wrong, but the fear behind it? That was real. This was Natalie's final rewrite. A soft lie for strangers to believe. A controlled burn. But even fire leaves fingerprints. I didn't respond. But I didn't burn the picture either. I pinned it to the back wall of my closet, not out of anger, but as a reminder of what happens when someone needs to be everything to everyone and ends up belonging to no one at all. That summer, I took a trip to Asheville. No reason, just felt like going somewhere new. I stayed at a small inn owned by an older couple named Ruth and Henry. The room smelled like cedar and old books. No TVs. No Wi-Fi. Just a deck overlooking the mountains and a library of forgotten authors. On my last day, Ruth asked if I was a writer. No, I said. I teach. You look like someone who's been quiet for too long, she replied, without blinking. She wasn't wrong. That night, I wrote something. Not a memoir. Not a letter to Natalie. Just a page. A story. About a man who finds out the person he loves never existed. And the version that did was written in disappearing ink. I filled 2 notebooks since then. Not for anyone to read. Just to remind myself that I still have a voice. Still have a pulse. Still have a future that doesn't begin and end with her. People always ask what healing looks like. They think it's closure. Apologies. Justice. It's not. It's rebuilding trust in your own perception. Believing your instincts again after someone trained you to doubt them. It's hearing your own thoughts, unfiltered by someone else's narrative. It's trusting silence again, not as a threat, but as peace. I don't know where Natalie is. Denver, maybe. Or hiding behind another name in another small town, whispering half-truths into a new man's ear. It doesn't matter. Because I'm no longer trying to outpace her lies. I'm just living in a place she can't reach. The present. If you asked me what the best revenge is, I'd say this. Knowing that her best performance was still never enough to keep the real me. And never will be. The first time I realized I'd fully moved on, I was standing in line at a hardware store. There was a woman in front of me, middle-aged, sun-at, humming to herself while buying paintbrushes. I remember thinking, that hum is honest. No performance. No one to impress. Just a tune she liked, escaping her without permission. And I realized it had been months since I tried to decipher someone's behavior, since I questioned what someone's smile meant. Natalie once told me, "You always think people are deeper than they are. Like there's a hidden meaning in everything." She said it like a compliment, but it was a warning. She didn't want to be known. She wanted to be believed blindly. Now, I don't try to decode people anymore. I just watch what they do when they don't need something from you. That's the truth. Always is. The last time I heard her name was by accident. I was on campus. Two new faculty members were chatting over lunch in the lounge. One of them said, "There was this weird case in Nashville. Woman faked a full new identity, wrote a book, even went on a podcast tour." I looked up from my sandwich. They didn't notice. She changed her name twice, made up a past full of trauma that wasn't hers. Got found out mid-interview. Internet blew up for like a week. Dang, what was her real name? Can't remember. She's gone now. And just like that, she was a glitch in someone else's anecdote. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt free. Because she'd become what she feared most, forgettable. I kept the house, repainted the walls, donated the wedding china, started gardening. That surprised even me. Turns out I'm decent with roses. Something about pruning them reminds me that beauty doesn't mean softness. Sometimes the most fragile-looking things grow back with thorns sharper than before. I never posted about her. Never told my side on Facebook. Never tried to correct her version of events with anyone who still followed her. Because the truth doesn't beg for attention. It just waits. A few months ago, I took a short trip to Asheville again. Same little inn. Ruth and Henry remembered me. Still quiet. Ruth asked, pouring tea. I smiled. Quieter, but not hollow anymore. She nodded like she'd been waiting for that answer. That night, I brought out my old notebook. The first one. The one I started the night I admitted she'd never loved me the way I needed. And I wrote this. You can survive betrayal, but to heal from it, you have to stop needing them to understand what they did. Natalie will never understand. Because she lives through mirrors, not windows. She only ever sees herself reflected in others' attention. But me? I've got windows now. Sunlight, air, clarity. No more shadows shaped like her. Some days, people ask if I still believe in love. I do, but not the kind that asks you to shrink, or doubts your instincts, or uses your past like a script for sympathy. I believe in love that sounds like truth, that hums in public, that doesn't need to be believed to be real. Natalie taught me a lot, but not the lessons she intended. She taught me how lies dress themselves in poetry, how performance becomes a prison, and most of all, that some stories are meant to end without applause. Just peace. So if you're waiting for the twist, the final blow, the gotcha ending, here it is. The best revenge is knowing you no longer need any. Because when the dust settles, and the masks are gone, all that's left is the kind of man who walks away whole.
What do you think of the story? Write in the comments.